What's good, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Hope Season 1 is treating you well. Today we have a Barbarian leveling build for you. Now, I've invested about 10 days in the class, so I have a pretty good feel for the class. I'm no expert or anything, but I think I can identify some of the issues in the leveling process, and this is my attempt at how to best mitigate those issues so that it feels better for leveling the class. This is not going to put the class on par with a rogue or sorcerer or some of the more enjoyable classes to leveling. This is just meant to try to remove some of the doldrums in the barbarian leveling process. Now, I've seen a few builds from larger creators that tend to focus on rend as your main core ability. This is not that. I tried rend leveling up my first barbarian, and I just did not care for the feel of the build. I just don't want to feel like a really ripped assassin. I want to feel like I'm actually like hitting things and they're dying. So this is an upheaval build. It tends to focus around stuns, and it addresses what I think are a couple of the key issues for Barbarian. One is mobility. This has a few mobility bonuses built into the build. Now, it's not... Barbarian mobility is not like, for instance, what Necromancer mobility is. It's better than that, but you still want to get some mobility just so you're feeling like you can move around in the world at a reasonable pace. But the main issue is Fury generation. Now, Barbarian is very reliant on shouts. I tried to minimize the use of shouts, although we do still have one shout in this build. But my main idea behind the build was to make sure that all the abilities that weren't your core and your basic attack had the ability to generate Fury. The problem that I think Barbarian falls into is you're trying to use your core abilities, but to generate Fury early on, you're over-reliant on your basic attack, which means you're spamming your basic attack, which just doesn't feel like a good playstyle. So this is an upheaval build that I put together that I think addresses some of those issues. If you have any way you think you can improve it, please let me know down in the comments. And if I repeat anything in the rest of this video, that's because I recorded it in two separate sections. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoy. Here's the build. Okay, guys, here is the build for basic attack. We took 1 out of 5 in lunging strike. Obviously, the mobility and fury generation that you get with this is just too good, so we took this over the other options for basic attack. We took the combat lunging strike for that extra berserking, so you can just get a little bit of more mobility into the build with the berserking. Plus, obviously, while you're in berserking, we're going to have a little bit better fury generation later in the build. 5 out of 5 in upheaval. Obviously, that's what the build is built around, and we want the enhanced with the 2.5 second 20% chance to stun, and then the furious so that we can stack this. We are going to be taking leap later in the build. If you can get the leap earthquake, that is obviously a good way to be able to stack this very quickly. But obviously, that's reliant on items, and this build is, you know, we try to minimize the reliance on items for this build, but it's just a tip if you can locate that. Pressure point gives your core skills the 30% chance to make enemies vulnerable. Stun and vulnerable is going to get bonuses later in this, so even though vulnerable is nerfed, we still want to try to make vulnerable when we can. 1 out of 5 in the ground stomp, and that's really just to get to the 40 fury that's been buffed from the tactical ground stomp. And then we took 5 out of 5 in rallying cry. Rallying cry is just way too nice for resource generation, plus it gives us the unstoppable. And then we went to the tactical rallying cry for even more fury and resource generation. Come down here, we took 5 out of 5 in leap. I went 5 out of 5 in leap to reduce the cooldown, because obviously if you get into areas where there's not enemies, it can be used as a mobility tool. And even though we're prioritizing fury generation, it is nice to get mobility where we can, but we do take the power leap for the 40 fury here. 3 out of 3 in booming voice, just to extend the duration of the rallying cry for a little bit more resources. And then 3 out of 3 in swiftness, just to give you that a little bit extra movement speed, because we are trying to get movement, even though it's not the main priority of the build. Aggressive resistance, but that is 1 out of 3 just to get down to the 3 out of 3 in prolific fury, so we can get that a little bit extra resource generation while we're in berserk. Come down to our weapon mastery skills. We got 1 out of 3 in pit fighter, but that's really to get to 3 out of 3 in no mercy to increase our stun chance against or critical strike chance against stunned enemies. 5 out of 5 in death blow. Obviously the death blow, enhanced death blow for bosses, but more importantly the fighter's death blow to generate 20 fury. If you get into packs of weaker enemy, the 20 fury generation is nice, because if you get into a situation where enemies can be either killed with one basic attack followed by a death blow, or just in some instances with really weak enemies, You can spam Death Blow and take out a large pack of them. It's a way to get Fury very quickly to dump upheavals out. Come down here into our ultimate skills. We didn't take any of the ultimate skills, but we did take 3 out of 3 in wall-up skills using bludgeoning weapons, deal 15% increased damage if the enemy is stunned or vulnerable. Obviously, we're going to be applying both, so we wanted to increase that damage against those enemies. And then concussion, 3 out of 3. Lucky hit skills using bludgeoning weapons have a 30% chance to stun enemies for 3.12 seconds and up to a 45% chance when using a two-handed bludgeoning weapon, which we will be using, so we want to take advantage of that. And then down into our key passives, we went with the Unbridled Rage just because everything in the build is built around generating fury with abilities other than our basic attack. I felt like my theory behind this build is that the basic attack spam to increase fury for your core skill was one of the worst feelings when leveling Barbarian, so I went with a build that I thought all the abilities minimize the use of the basic attack. Obviously, you're still going to use the basic attack as a mobility tool, and you will have to, weave it into your build, but we just wanted to reduce that basic attack spam so you feel like you're using all of your abilities and that there's a greater flow and that you're getting out more upheavals. That was kind of my theory behind the build. I hope you guys like it. If you did, leave a like, and we'll catch you on the next one. Until then, guys, get awesome.